Welcome to Cyber Bytes Insights, your most relevant cybersecurity outlet regarding innovation, outreach, and education. I'm your host, Maggie Dillon, and today I am joined by Dr. Paul Lawrence. Paul, welcome.
Hey Maggie, great to be with you.
We've been really anticipating this recording, and I want to explain a little bit about your history, your background. It's absolutely phenomenal. Paul is a businessman, author, passionate veteran advocate with over 35 years of experience solving management problems in large, complex organizations. As a private sector executive, he was a consulting partner at two Big Four accounting firms and a vice president at two Fortune 500 companies. He is a government management thought leader and has written several books on this subject. For almost 3 years, he served as an Undersecretary of Benefits to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, unanimously confirmed by the Senate on April 26, 2018. As Undersecretary, he was in charge of the Veterans Benefits Administration, VBA, leading a team of 25,000 people with an operating budget of $4 billion, administering $120 billion in benefits annually. He implemented proven business practices, streamlined the bureaucracy, and created a public presence, rebranding the VBA as an organization successfully supporting veterans. Also, thank you for your service as a veteran yourself.
Thank you, Maggie.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting when we met how our paths had crossed. I had worked the VA contract during the peak of the backlog back in 08, 09 timeframe. That's kind of when it kicked off for me. And then I hear about some of the things that you had worked on, and we both have this resounding passion for veterans, as does the Cyber Bytes Foundation. That's something we are absolutely really trying to get our message out to the masses to help these veterans in every way that we can. So I want to really talk today. Obviously, you have a lot of passion for this topic, and I want to talk about your veteran advocacy. What for you right now have been maybe just some of the top initiatives you're working on or trying to bring together with regards to veteran advocacy?
So sure, the one thing is by virtue of my last job in government, right? So I learned all about the benefits. And so part of what I learned in addition to what they are and how they work was how much more information needed to be provided to veterans. I got lots of questions of, I don't understand my benefits. How do I access them? What do I do? Where do I go for help? So part of what I do by virtue of my writing and my speaking is try to explain these things. So here's what they are. Don't forget, these aren't entitlements. These are earned benefits. So one of them is letting people know, letting veterans know, these are here and these can really change your life. Own a home, get a college education, things like that. The second thing I'm really excited about or really interested in is trying to get veterans a good job. I think having a job is tremendously important, right? It gives meaning and purpose beyond the money for your life and your family, but it really allows folks to connect. And that's something we worry about is when veterans leave the service, right? They've left this team and they've been totally connected and totally engaged, and they often are not. And that can be potentially lead to some negative consequences. So I think veteran employment, right? It isn't just any job. It's a good job, a good career, and one that they're well paid, and they should be. And so that's what I'm currently focused on.
I love that. And we are also same focus with our CrossRoads program. And I want to really talk about some of the things that we're trying to do. We're bringing in partners from all over the United States, both private, public sector, government, military, everyone. We're trying to join forces to bring veterans back to the forefront on that transitioning piece. And one of the things that I have seen historically over the years, especially with my executive headhunting experience, is there's a massive disconnect, even with the recruiting firms trying to fill positions for other companies, large organizations that are global, these types of things, because they maybe don't have the resources, or it's just the process seems to be very slow sometimes. And so how do we get the message out there better? How do you think that the economy overall would benefit? And more importantly, what do you see veterans getting in return if we're able to kind of come together collaboration-wise?
Well, I think we have to break this in parts, right? So let's think about the companies. Often they don't really understand veterans. So someone might say, we want to hire veterans, we're veteran friendly, but they often don't realize what that means. So I've dealt with a lot of leaders and said, I don't understand why we don't hire more veterans. And I said, well, I bet if you look in your HR department or the people that do the hiring, those that are screening the resumes are unfamiliar with what veterans write on their resume, probably don't have any veterans down there, and they're more prone to hiring their friends who went to the state university of wherever. So we've got to make the companies more aware. At the same time, we've got to make the veterans more aware of like what it is to enter the civilian world. You cannot send a resume with all kinds of military gobbledygook over it and expect someone to figure out what that means for their company. You've got to sort of work to get that resume well accepted and well digested. So those are the two things we've got to work on, and both sides have to be better. Now in the companies, they often have a veterans resource group or a veterans affinity group who could go and advocate for veterans, so they've got to do a better job. Leaving the military, things like your podcast and things like what you do, got to get folks better prepared. They need to start earlier to understand what the possibilities are, especially in terms of getting a well-paid job versus just any old job. But the net of this is more veterans employed is good all around. It's good for the veterans, but it's good for our economy. If we had 1 million more people working, that would just generate tremendous amounts of gross national product. If they worked in the national security industry, that would make us better in terms of our national defense. So it has all kinds of positive features for everybody.
We are really doing a push to obviously get those objectives that you just mentioned solidified with the Cyber Bytes Foundation, and especially in cybersecurity. IT, cybersecurity, very different types of technology expertise, but helping veterans transition into these types of roles really also comes back down to the education portion. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to speak with you was in regards to our CrossRoads programs. I am going to go ahead and read our mission statement here, just so everyone knows, because this program, when I heard about it, I thought, this is phenomenal. I wish when I was executive recruiting that I had a resource like this that I could have pulled veterans from to help fill my positions. So it's about getting the message out there and educating the public on how we bring these resources together. So for everyone that may be watching or listening to this, the CrossRoads program is dedicated to providing end-to-end services for transitioning military, veterans, first responders, their spouses and dependents, Goldstar families, and underrepresented communities. By engaging with federal, state, and local agencies, nonprofits, businesses, incubators, accelerators, and investors, CrossRoads is able to create a community-facing consortium. That's huge. And so really having this conversation with somebody like yourself, first, it's an honor, not just because you're a veteran, but because of what your wealth of tribal knowledge is. You've been in the trenches. You understand how critical some of these things are. And so with this program, how do you think that we could all combine forces and really leverage that? If there's anything I didn't mention here, do you see any type of gaps or even more for the veterans themselves? How do you think the veterans could do a better job of getting to these resources?
Yeah, well, I think I have a very simple view. And is this in this state of the world, right? The demand for folks who are cyber qualified, who can do cyber things, strikes me as huge. Okay, so you want to be in an industry that can't really be outsourced, and the demand is high. And this looks like it to me from all signs I read and understand, right? So really, it's more of sort of getting veterans aware and say, okay, listen, just like you pointed out, you may know something about computers, but oh, by the way, if you can get some more training, you can be in the cyber industry, and that, the money and the lifestyle, it just goes up tremendously. And the other thing too is I think it's based on my understanding of what you all do, it isn't that hard to do. This isn't years and years of advance. This is training that's easy to understand and most likely veterans can do. So again, I worry about veterans being underemployed, right? Hey, they come out, they take any old job. Oh, I was good for computers, and now I'm making $75,000 a year and just a terrible grinding job. Well, you realize if you had paid attention, maybe gone to Cyber Bytes or whatever, you could make twice that in sort of like state-of-the-art kind of stuff. So I think it's more explaining to people what is possible and what's out there and what you need to do to obtain that versus just taking any old job.
And we have a lot of different areas that we can cover with some of the things that you just said. So this program obviously is here to assist the groups that I've mentioned. But Cyber Bytes Foundation as a whole, we have 3 core areas of focus, which is education, innovation, and outreach. The education portion is to help fill these gaps of underemployed people with certifications, various courses. There's no one size that fits all. We have entry-level positions all the way up to top secret security clearances, things of this nature. We need everybody all hands on deck in that regard, especially being at a deficit with over, I believe it's 3.5 million at this point of cybersecurity professionals. We also need business acumen that comes with that. So there's a lot of kind of similar areas of expertise that we can capitalize on and help train and facilitate that. On the other end, we are having universities come to us that can't keep up with the technology. So they have to start partnering with organizations like the Cyber Bytes Foundation just to keep up with AI, blockchain, quantum, these types of things. So it's really about us doing the best we can to speak with people like yourself, get the mission out there, get our focus out there, and see how we can be a resource to help our veterans. So I want to also ask you a question. Where do you see the biggest gap with regard to veteran unemployment?
Well, so there's two things. So every month there's about, if you believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 250,000 veterans who are just unemployed. That means they're looking for jobs and they have not found one. Okay, so you wonder how much of that is on the veterans not being aware of the right opportunities and not being prepared to go into that, right? Because I mean, demand for talent, as you point out, is really, really strong. And we know from all the surveys, veterans tend to have many of the attributes companies want. And once they get a job, they tend to be some of the top performers. You know, they show up on time, they don't complain, they just go in and do the job because they're very mission focused. So that's certainly one of them. The other is just being aware of, you know, what's out there. Now, for example, there are a whole host of veterans who are not working. They've just decided I don't want a job and I'm not in the labor force. They've just dropped out. So I don't think that's a good thing by and large. I think we've got to get them back into the marketplace. So it isn't just getting the folks who are looking and can't find the job. It's getting those folks who are on the sidelines back involved. About 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, there were 1 million more veterans working every month than there are now. They didn't all pass. You know what I'm saying? When you're old, you don't have a job, so they couldn't have all passed and lost those jobs. So they're sitting on the sidelines. So we've got to tell them there are great jobs, great careers out there, like in the cyber industry, like in a whole bunch of things you're talking about that can really, you know, make a difference. And it beats, you know, sitting at home, being in front of your computer all day.
How do you think we should go about reinvigorating those veterans that are on the sidelines?
Well, it's definitely the last thing you went through. Outreach. We've got to connect with this. We've got to tell their buddies. Everybody has a friend who's like this. Oh, I have a friend. All he or she does is sit at home all day. And there's surveys about what happens when people withdraw from the labor force. It isn't just veterans. It's a lot of primarily males. Okay, they sit at home and by and large they do nothing. Okay, we've got to say, hey, you have a friend sitting at home on a couch, tell them they must re-engage, right? Tell them there are places like the Cyber Bytes Foundation where you can engage easily and learn skills fast and quickly that make you relevant. And especially, you know, in an industry where the demand is so high.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to something that you just said, the word relevant. There has never been a time where veterans are truly needed by their country to come back to the workforce. We need your help. And if there's any way that we can be a resource to you in that regard, especially with the CrossXRoads program, especially with the Cyber Bytes Foundation, please come to us. Let us know your name. We want to help as best we can. Paul, thank you so much for those words, because I think there's just a lack of passion, a lack of energy. There's been a lot of things that veterans have unfortunately not gotten assistance with in some ways, but also on the flip side of that, we can do a better job of showing up. So it's just a matter of communicating through these issues, revitalizing the workforce, and training new skills. I myself, if you would have told me 15 years ago I'd be having these types of conversations, I would have told you you're crazy. And it's because I got re-inspired. And I really love to protect people, and I love to get the message out there and see how we can show up collectively better. So I really appreciate your time today. I know you have a lot of books that you've written over the years. Is there any that you would like to speak to or tell the public about if they'd like to get their hands on that?
Well, I guess the one thing goes back to benefits. I've written a book recently called Veterans Benefits for You, which describes all the benefits for veterans. So it just sort of goes through them all, and it's easy to read so folks can figure out what are they and how do I access them. So it's good for folks, service members who are getting ready to transition, because they often get a fire hose shot of information on the way out and they don't really know all about their benefits. It's good for spouses to have because they need to know about what their veteran has earned. And it's also good, I've noticed a lot of folks get it for a gift for an elderly veteran, either in their family like the uncle or in their ecosystem like in the neighborhood, who maybe was a Vietnam veteran back in the day when we didn't do a great job of welcoming those veterans back. So it's really designed to help folks understand what are your benefits, how do you access them, what can you use them for, and what's the easiest way to get no cost help if you're struggling sort of going through the process.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to go do that?
I'm on LinkedIn as my name, Paul R. Lawrence, and they can get the book on
Wonderful.
Amazon.
Well, thank you so much for your time. As always, this has been a production of the Cyber Bytes Foundation. I'm your host, Maggie Dillon. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you also can find me over on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me and shoot me a DM there. But in the meantime, to all of our veterans, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your service. We are here for you. You are not alone. And in the meantime, stay up, stay strong, stay focused.